Chapter 13. The three boys, Theo, Woody, and Hardy, along with one dog, Judge, met at Truman Park near downtown as soon as possible after school on Friday. A fishing trip had been organized, and the boys were excited about the adventure. A rough week of school had just ended, and it was time to relax. Fishing had been Hardy's idea. He wanted to show Theo firsthand the Quinn family farm and the beautiful scenery the governor had and some other politicians now wanted to destroy. Woody and Theo followed Hardy, with Theo bringing up the rear so Judge can and his leash could not get tangled up with with other bikes. Though Judge was only a dog, he felt as if he should lead and the boys should follow. Unleashed, though, he obediently trotted alongside Theo and seemed happy just to be included. They zigzagged through the shady tree streets and the old sections and made their way to a biking trail that looped around the southern part of town and avoided the traffic and residential areas. At a busy intersection, they crossed Highway 75 and soon disappeared down a narrow country lane with trees touching an arc above it. The town and its congestion and noise were behind them. They sped down hills and grunted up them. They crossed many tiny creeks and at one point rattled through an old abandoned covered bridge. After 30 minutes, the boys were sweating and Judge needed some water. They paused long enough for him to step into a creek. Just a few more minutes, Hardy said. When they had caught their breath, they took off again. They topped a hill and stopped again. Below them was a beautiful valley with a few clearings and lots of trees. Hardy pointed to the only house in view, a white structure far in the distance. That's where my grandparents live, he said, still breathing hard. The boys took in the scenery as they rested. Hardy pointed to his right and said, "The bypass cuts across the entire valley. One wide gash that begins over there between those two hills, and goes through the tallest hill that way." His right arm swept to his left. "That's Chalk Hill, and the plan is to level it with dynamite. Just blow it up and flatten it out. Everything else gets bulldozed, then covered with asphalt. Not sure what happens to my grandparents." "How can they do this?" Woody asked. Asked Theo. Theo said, "The law gives the state the right to take anybody's land. The state has to pay for it, of course, but they still get it." "That sucks." "It really does," Hardy said sadly. They rolled down the hill and minutes later came to a stop in front of the house. Hardy's grandmother, Miss Beverly Quinn, was waiting on the porch with a plate of walnut cookies and ice water. Hardy introduced his friends and Judge, and she sat with them during the quick snack. Hardy's grandfather was puttering down at the tractor barn, according to his wife. There was no mention of the bypass. That topic seemed too awful to even consider. As Theo ate a cookie and rocked gently in the old Ricker rocker, he admired the spotless painted porch, the hanging ferns, the beds of neatly tended flowers, the white picket fence along the front yard, and he tried to envision a bunch of bulldozers destroying it all. The very idea seemed grossly unfair, even cruel. When the boys finished, they thanked her and hurried off to go fishing. In the storage shed behind the house, they found a wide selection of rods and reels, along with with cane poles, tackle boxes, soccer balls, volleyballs, badminton net sets, frisbees, two canoes, four kayaks, even golf clubs. "We have a lot of fun out here," Hardy said. He claimed to have 11 cousins in the Strattenburg area, along with aunts and uncles and friends close enough to be kinfolks. And they spent a lot of time on the family farm. They picked 3 rods and reels, and Hardy stuffed a small tackle box into his backpack. They were off again, flying down a narrow dirt trail that wound its way through a patch of thick woods. 10 minutes after leaving the house, they plowed to a stop at the banks of Red Creek. "This is the best spot on the farm," Hardy said as he unpacked the tackle box. "Some of the best smallmouth bass in this area." Theo unleashed his dog, and Judge jumped into the water. The creek was wide and the water splashed over rocks in the distance. We camp here all the time, Hardy said. It's beautiful, Theo said. Can we go kayaking? Maybe later, Hardy said. There are some decent rapids just around a bend there. A little too rough for a canoe. We kayak all the time. As an only child who lived in town, Theo was mildly envious of Hardy and his big family and this tract of land where they had so much fun. The farm was like one big adventure park, but with real adventures, not fake ones. Hardy was standing on a granite ledge about 10 feet above the water, and he had cast twice into the creek when he suddenly spotted something in the distance. What is that? He asked himself out loud. What? Asked Woody, who was nearby. Hardy pointed and said, Look beside those trees down the hill. Some men. Theo and Woody were climbing onto the ledge next to Hardy, whose voice left no doubt he was concerned. Sure enough, across the narrow valley that bordered a creek, there were several men milling around a pickup truck, probably a half mile away. That's our property, Hardy said. What are they doing? Theo asked. Don't know, but they shouldn't be there, Hardy said. We should have brought binoculars, Woody said. Better yet, let's go find out, Hardy said, and the boys forgot about fishing. Theo could have let it pass. The men did not appear to be doing anything wrong, but he did not understand how much the Quinn family valued their land and its privacy. The boys jumped on their bikes. Follow me, Hardy said as they took off. Judge, soaking wet, followed Theo, who followed Woody. They went a short distance and crossed the creek in an old footbridge, one barely wide enough for bikes. When they sped along a dirt road, and then they sped along a dirt road until they approached the men. There were four of them, three younger men with an older guy who was probably the boss. Their truck was a large service type vehicle with a club cab and the words Strategic Surveys painted on the doors. Not far from the truck was the beginning of the line of stakes stuck in the ground with red ribbons tied to each top. What do you boys want? The older man asked. Hardy was off his bike and approaching the man. What are you doing here? He asked. Maybe that's none of your business, kid. Maybe it is. This is my family's property. Who gave you permission to be here? The three younger men laughed at this kid with the questions. Theo looked at them. All three were fairly large with dirty shirts and beards, and the general appearance of men who lived hard and made no effort to avoid trouble. Don't get smart with me, boy, the older man said. What's your name? Hardy shot back. Willis, what's yours? Hardy Quinn. My family has owned this land for 100 years. Well, congratulations, Willis said with a sneer. Ownership is about to pass over to the state. The other three found this funny, and they laughed again. As they did, so they inched forward, closer to the rear of the truck, where Willis was standing less than 10 feet from Hardy. Theo took a step forward and said, He asked you a question. Who gave you permission to come onto this land? The state, Willis growled towards Theo, who quickly said, Oh, yeah, but the state doesn't own his property yet. A bunch of wise guys, Willis said to his men. Then to Hardy and Theo, he said, Look, boys, we're here doing some preliminary survey work for the bypass, that's all. Our company has a contract with the state and they sent us out here. Why don't you boys just relax and go on about your business? We're doing our jobs and we're not bothering anyone. To which Hardy fired back. You're bothering me because you don't have permission to be here. Theo the lawyer quickly added, You're trespassing, okay? And that's a criminal offense. You can go to jail for it. The shortest of the three younger men took a step in. Theo took a step in Theo's direction and said, Wow, a real know it all. You watch too much TV, kid. That, or maybe I just have the ability to read, Theo shot back. Shorty's face turned red and he clenched his fist. Woody stepped beside Theo and Judge was at his feet. The situation was tense and ridiculous. Three 13-year-old boys and a mutt facing off four full-grown men. There seemed to be a stalemate. The men were not leaving and the boys were not backing down. Theo had an idea, one that would quickly prove to be disastrous. He reached into his pocket, removed his phone, and said, I'm calling 911. We'll let the police help us out here. Willis yelled, Put that phone down, kid. You're not calling the police. Theo said, I can call anybody I want to call. Who are you to tell me I can't call someone? I said, Put the phone down. Shorty suddenly lunged for Theo. He grabbed him by the arm, shook it violently, sent Theo's phone flying into the dirt, then shoved Theo to the ground. Stupid kid, Shorty mumbled. Woody and Hardy were startled by this act of aggression and they stepped back. Judge, however, never hesitated. He attacked Shorty and almost bit his leg before getting kicked away. Judge growled and hissed and darted again for Shorty, who said, Get that dog away from me. Come here, Judge, Theo said as he scrambled to his feet. At that moment, he wished Judge could have been a 90-pound pit bull trained to attack instead of a 40-pound mutt who was afraid of cats. But he was not afraid of Shorty. In a flash, Judge attacked again and again got kicked to the side. He barked in anger and frustration and bolted again at Shorty. As they would soon find out, the third man's name was Larry, one of Shorty's sidekicks. Larry suddenly stepped forward with a 5-foot wooden survey stake, and as Judge again went after Shorty, Larry struck the dog on the back of the head. Theo screamed, and Hardy yelled, and Woody picked up a rock. In the dust and dirt and chaos and horror of the moment, Larry kept whacking away at Judge as Shorty kept kicking him, and the boys attempted to react. Woody rushed forward and was tripped by the third man. He fell on top of Theo. Hardy was yelling, Put the stick down, okay? Theo finally managed to throw himself on top of Judge, and for a good measure, Larry popped Theo on the rear end of the stake. The men were laughing, the boys were crying, and poor little Judge was bleeding and whimpering. The men backed away. Theo cradled his dog and gently lifted him. He had blood all over his head, and his body was limp. Talk to me, Judge, Theo pleaded through tears. Hardy screamed at the men. You'll pay for this. Theo began running. He clutched Judge to his chest and ran past his bike because he knew he couldn't ride it and Judge at the same time. Hardy and Woody jumped on their bikes and soon caught up with Theo, who was jogging in a daze, tears on his cheeks, blood on his shirt, Judge close to his heart. Hardy said, Woody, you have to stay with Theo. I'll sprint ahead and get my grandfather. Good idea, Woody said. Hardy was gone. Is he alive, Theo? Woody asked softly as he rode as close to Theo as possible. Theo bit his lip and said, I don't know. He's not moving. Blood was dripping from Theo's elbow. He was running as fast as he could. That's the end of chapter 13.